Looking for the perfect hidden gem for your next night out? Welcome to Almost on the Lake, where the food is delicious. The service is top-notch. And the atmosphere feels like home. Family-owned and locally loved. Come see why everyone is talking about Almost on the Lake.
Nestled in the heart of historic downtown Wilkesboro, the 1915 offers a wedding experience like no other. Once a federal courthouse and post office, the 1915 combines rich history with timeless charm. From intimate gatherings to full-day rentals, we provide the perfect backdrop for your most cherished moments. With indoor and outdoor options, bridal and groom suites, every detail is crafted just for you. Make your wedding unforgettable at the 1915, Wilkesboro's historic wedding venue, where your story begins.
Closed captions for this episode of Life in Wilkes is brought to you by Deal Insurance Agency in Wilkesboro, an award-winning, experienced, family-owned and operated agency with service and coverage that goes above and beyond expectations. Join us on a captivating journey as we explore the charm, history, and vibrant culture of Wilkes County. Discover the hidden gems, inspiring stories, and remarkable people that make Wilkes a place worth knowing and celebrating. Join us now and experience the unique essence of Life in Wilkes.
Fred Costello, how are you, sir?
Doing great. Life in paradise is wonderful.
Oh, you got that right. Fred, we met not long ago and had lunch, and that was really good. Almost on the lake.
Yes, sir.
We had lunch and sat with a few friends and talked over ideas. I think it was probably a few weeks before that. Dale Isom had us on what is that, a tree? Sent both of us messages at the same time, and we should visit, and we're visiting now. We had lunch, and I love your story.
Oh.
It's incredibly fascinating, and it speaks to a multitude of things. One, of course, from Life in Wilkes is the fact that there are wonderful things in Wilkes County that attract people to this area. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that in a moment, but let's first go back and do that thing we like to do with everybody and let people know who you are and a little bit about your people and what you've done through your incredible life thus far.
Well, thank you, I guess. And just to be clear, I never envisioned that I would be in the interview chair. I was trying to put you together with some other folks that I think have some amazing stories to tell about our faith community here in Wilkes County. Right. As for me and my house, as that saying goes, right. I was born in Orlando. My mom was born in Orlando. My mom was regent of the DAR and dean of the American Guild of Organists. My dad gave Flag Day speeches, taught Sunday school, so I was raised to believe that you get involved in community. Right. That to whom much is given, much is required. Mm-hmm. So after college, I went to dental school, then I went into the Air Force. I went in the Air Force because my dad was in the Army Air Corps, and I thought that we should all serve.
Right.
So when we decided to get married, I told my wife, as I proposed, I said, if you say yes, we're going to be living in Florida. And she says that's the only reason that she's lived in Florida all those years was because she agreed to it. It's too hot. So she has wanted to come to the mountains probably since the beginning. So when we retired, she felt like that I chose where we lived when we worked. She gets to choose where we live when we retire. And I couldn't argue with that. Yeah. So I've been blessed to be married for 52 years. We've got 3 children, 2 of whom are adopted from Honduras that occurred subsequent to mission trips in Haiti, and the nurse that was there went to Honduras, and the little girl was born. They knew we were interested in adopting, and so that's a long, wonderful story. Now we have grandchildren and great-grandchildren from them.
Wow.
So in Ormond Beach, where we lived for 43 years, I was like most other young professionals. I was ambitious, worked hard. my priorities were God first, family second, then community. And so when I was building my new office, it took forever to get the approval. It took 2 years to get the approvals.
So this was from the dental side?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Let me ask you a couple of things before we move forward. So dental school. So you'd gotten out of the military, right?
Went to dental school before the military. The military put me through dental school.
Okay.
And that's where I met my wife.
Okay.
And then went out to California. I'm a Vietnam era veteran. I was never in country. I served in California is where they sent me. And I honor all vets no matter where they serve.
Right.
But I also, in my way, honor all vets who are in harm's way, because I can't imagine what that was like. I'm blessed that I was never in harm's way. So after the military, we moved to Florida, and long story how we chose that, and I won't go into that now, but it was a blessing. And so when I was trying to build my office, it took forever to get it. So one of my patients said, well, why don't you let me put you on the planning board to see if you can change how that works?
Wait, just a minute. So you had a friend, it was on planning board, so this was with the city, right?
My patient was a city commissioner.
City commissioner.
And knew that I was very frustrated that it took 2 years to get the permits. We built the first office condominium in the county.
Well, where were you practicing then?
Ormond Beach. I had just gotten into my new office.
Okay, all right. Okay.
And he was complimenting me on the office.
Right.
And I said, well, thank you. It only took a year to build it, but it took 2 years to get the permits. And we had people visit the office from multiple states. It was a beautiful office. I went to a course in Texas on dental office architectural design. I feel like anything you're going to do, you do it right or you don't do it.
So you learned about the teeth part first. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to do this now, so we need a nice place.
Yeah.
And instead of just hiring a guy to do it, you're like, I think I want to go to school and learn how that all works.
Well, I didn't quite go to school, but went to multiple courses, and nobody could design your office better than you can. You know what you want.
Sure.
So he puts me on the planning board, and I serve on the planning board for a number of years. And then my good friend went and had a heart issue, as we had talked about earlier,
right.
And told me that I needed to run for city commissioner, because if I didn't run, this other guy was going to run, and we didn't want him.
Right.
And to me, the best way to find public servants is people that don't seek office, but seek to make a difference.
Right.
And I had been involved in Kiwanis. I had been involved in Easter Seals, Volunteer of the Year. I had been involved in a number of things locally. So I became a city commissioner.
So are you suggesting that the best people to be in those offices who want to serve they're people who are already serving. They're people who are already making a difference, making contributions in small to big ways.
Absolutely, 100%. People that show they care about the community, not people that want to be mayor or want to be this or want to be that. And I say that I'd rather have the ditch digger that's known as the best ditch digger in town that sponsors a little league team because he cares than a mediocre doctor. I don't want someone who needs the public service arena to get the adulation because they don't feel received by the community, whereas the best ditch digger, everybody knows he's the best.
That's right.
He doesn't need adulation.
And he's needed.
Absolutely. So that's how I got into being involved in the public service that you were asking about. And so then I'm mayor and get the things done that I wanted to.
Okay, so wait. So all right. So you go from planning, then you become part of city council, and then what was it? Because it's that pivotal moment of where you're like, okay, did you decide that you wanted to run for mayor? Did you have friends who were saying, you know what, you really should run for mayor. We need you.
Our current mayor came to me and said, Fred, next Tuesday night I'm going to resign because I'm running for state representative. If you don't resign as commissioner and say you're going to run for mayor, this other one will run for mayor, and none of us want him.
So that's
and you're the only one in town that can beat him, and he'll beat everybody else. So you need to run for mayor. And I believed he was right.
How long did it take you to say yes?
10 seconds, or I mean, no. I absolutely did not want, and we won't go into that. There are many reasons why we did not want him, but so that's why I ran for mayor. It wasn't that I sought mayor and never thought about running for mayor, but did not want the alternative.
Right. What happened when you told your wife? How'd that go down? You went home and says, "Honey, I got something to tell you," or "You're not going to believe this."
I don't remember, but I'm sure she wasn't surprised.
Right.
I mean, I'm like most people who care. I'm not dumb, but I'm not the smartest one around. My belief is I want to be the dumbest one in the room. I want to surround myself with people that are smarter than I am. I think that's the way we learn. That's the way we grow. So pretty much most every organization I've been in, I end up being president, not because I'm smarter than the rest of them, just because I'm willing to take on the tasks necessary to be successful. So she was not surprised.
Right.
I don't remember her immediate reaction. And there's no term limits for mayor. But while I'm mayor, the 8 years I'm mayor, the one that beat our former mayor that resigned for me to run was my patient. So our state representative for 8 years, which are term limited, was my patient. Our state senator was my patient, both of whom were telling me, you need to run for state representative when Pat is finished with his 8 years. And I kept saying, no, 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 no. But about the 7th year, you couldn't do pension reform locally. You couldn't do tax reform locally. You couldn't do growth management locally. You had to do it at the state.
So were those things that you were discovering as you were mayor, as you were dealing with the business of running a town or a city?
Right.
You're like, you've got all these, the council wants to do things, and you get into the minutia of it, and you're like, well, we can't do that. They got to do that.
The State Department of Community Affairs, DCA, would tell the locals, no, you can't do that here. You can't do that there. So the intersection of US 1 and I-95, most people know it. They've been through Florida. Sure. And they wanted us to do something different than what we wanted. And that's one of the reasons I went to Tallahassee, and we got rid of the State Department of Community Affairs and got that authority back to the locals. Now, there still needs to be oversight between. You have to be able to work with your neighbors, but we didn't want the state telling us that we needed to have a transportation hub when what we wanted was an office park, because the wages are higher. It's better for the community. There are more people that can get jobs there. We weren't in a hurry. We said, this is our vision, and they said, no, you're going to do this, and we said, no, we're not.
Right.
And anyhow,
were you the vocal front person on that?
Absolutely. And it's not that like I said, it was smarter. I had the bully pulpit. The mayor has the bully pulpit. No, you don't have more of a vote than a commissioner, but Dale Isom here and Mark Hauser, they've got the bully pulpit, and I think it's incumbent upon the leadership to be willing to take that risk. And I stepped way out. I asked for a meeting with the county council that had never been done before. So our city commission and our county council met together. It was still in the county. It was in our future land use plan, but it was in the county, and we got the county to adopt our ordinances for that property so that it would develop the way we wanted it to develop. And that's because I used the bully pulpit.
And it worked. So as you look back at, here's the thing. So you look back at that particular thing that went the way for the city, right? You wanted it to go. Now, in looking back, was it successful?
Absolutely. It's still growing. And the first company that went in was a local group that I think they've got about 600 employees now. It happens to be an insurance firm. And they're doing well, and it's local people that are working there. And that's what we wanted. We wanted to do something for our community.
And probably support more families by doing that.
Absolutely. And they are involved in charitable contributions to our community because they come from our community.
Nice. So okay, one day you're in the mayor's office, the next day you're at the Capitol.
I enjoyed being there. I loved being there. You could see the fruits of your labors. You can see the things that you advocated for happen. When you get to state level, it takes a long time to see the fruits of your labor. And the things that I wanted to do, I mentioned them already, and pension reform. I filed a pension bill that a lot of people didn't like. The reason I filed it was our pension system wasn't solvent. And so we ended up giving all state workers a 3% raise that first year, and they didn't get a dime of it. It all went into the pension. So they were both upset that they didn't get a raise, but they did get a raise, and it made their pension solvent. So things like that, there's the pluses and the minuses for everything you do, and you just have to be willing to do your homework and decide. And again, I'm going to make mistakes. All of us do. But I never made a decision based on whether it was popular or not. I made a decision based on whether I thought it was best for everybody or not.
So it sounds like you brought to bear some of your dental work, and it's like, this is going to hurt for a little bit, but it's going to be better.
Well, I loved dentistry, and,
Right.
and I had a very successful practice. I enjoyed smiles. I was honored to treat 3 different Miss Florida USAs and Miss Florida Junior Miss and a number of Hawaiian Tropic International contestants. We had a lot of quote beauty contestants, but we also gave away work to the Boys and Girls Club students that didn't have any ability to get something done. So again, to whom much is given, much is required. So some would say we had a high-end practice, but yet we gave away a lot, and I think that's the way it should be.
How did things wrap up with your state service?
Every 10 years, there's redistricting. So there was redistricting during the 2 years I was in Tallahassee. So where I live had no member of Congress as an incumbent. Both people who had represented us in the past were now representing a different district. And I worked very hard to get one of them to come back to where we are, and they chose not to do that. So there were 6 people in the race, and a large number of people said, Fred, you can win this race. We need you to get in this race for Congress. And there was one guy that lived in Ponte Vedra, Florida, that nobody knew anything about. His name's Ron DeSantis, and he won that race. And of course, he's now the governor.
Right.
So I came in second to Ron. And about the third debate, alphabetical order, they had us seated Costello, DeSantis.
Right.
So I'm next to him for most of the debates. And at the end of the second debate, I told him, obviously off camera, I said, well, Ron, if I lose to any one of these other guys, I'm going to be upset. If I lose to you, I think we'll be well represented. Because if I'd known more about him, I'd have stayed at the state. But nobody knew anything about him because he wasn't in our district.
Right.
So I was then out of politics and happy.
Right. Isn't that having this conversation now and thinking about and looking back over the years in that evolution of public service and seeing how it all works, being part of the mechanics of it, while it's rewarding, it's still kind of hard business, isn't it?
Oh, it's tough. In Tallahassee, I was honored to be, there's 120 representatives. I was honored to be one of 3 representatives given the Defender of Home Rule Award. And what that means is I stood up for the locals. I didn't want the state dictating to the locals, just like I don't want the federal government dictating to the states. If it's constitutional, great, but if it's not in the Constitution, get the heck out of it. The federal government has no business being involved in education. I want the 50 states to be 50 labs of innovation trying to determine what's the best way to educate our future leaders, our citizens. It's about educating our citizenry, not just our leaders and our future doctors and lawyers and teachers. It's about the citizenry. So I want the states to do that, not the federal government. Well, I want the locals to decide, if you want high property tax and beautiful this and beautiful that, fine, you can do that. People can use their feet to walk and go somewhere else with low taxes. I prefer low taxes. We all do. But yet I also prefer that the gymnasium that we have our kids playing in doesn't leak.
Right.
So you have to have enough money to fix the gymnasium.
The balance.
So what I'm trying to say with that is local government, to me, is quality of life. State government is live within your means. Whatever your budget is, you don't exceed your budget. The federal government ought to live within their budget, but their primary reason for existing is the Constitution and defense and interstate commerce and interstate travel and protection, postal service. And there's all those things that are enumerated in the Constitution that have nothing to do with what the federal, what is it, $36 trillion in debt? So that was, I remember one of my speeches when I'm running for Congress, we were $16 trillion in debt. Now we're $36 trillion. And I was railing about the fact that how in the world are we going to continue to be a world leader if we're $16 trillion in debt and it keeps getting more and more and more, and our money will become worth less and less and less, and we won't be world leaders anymore. And the reason it's important for us to be world leaders is because of our values, our Judeo-Christian values, where we want to protect people. We want to enhance the quality of life of everybody in the world. We don't want to take over anybody. We want to help them govern themselves. We want to help them avail themselves of all the opportunities. That's who America is. So that's why it's important for America to be a world leader.
So, Fred, where did this all come from for you? I mean, was this your mom and dad? I mean, these thoughts, these beliefs, when were they instilled from birth? How did it happen?
I think so. As I mentioned, my parents were very involved. They both taught Sunday school. I mean, so I was brought up loving the Lord. And in high school, I was in the Interact, which is Rotary's version in high school. I was in college. I was the Speaker Pro Tem of the Senate. I mean, I've always been involved in whatever is going on.
So you were learning about the structure of how our society operates on a local and then a growing level, and what it meant for individuals to be part of that, right? To actually participate.
Sure. And you asked something earlier, and I should have said this then, but it just reminded me. I think the best state representative is someone who has had local government experience. I think the best member of Congress or U.S. Senate is someone who has had state government experience. Now, the reason, this is opinion now. I try and separate fact from opinion. I'm now giving you an opinion. My opinion is the reason you don't see that very often is because if you're running for state office and you've had local experience, there's going to be at least one vote you've taken that they're going to take out of context and blow up the media with, he did this, don't vote for him. Sure. If you're running for Congress, they're going to take a vote you did in the state. And as you likely know, many bills have 12 items in them. And if 11 of them are great and one of them you don't like, and you vote for that bill because of the 11 great ones, they will point out the one that you didn't like. So that's why you see many members of Congress win never having had elected experience. And I think that's not good because you don't know how they're going to respond. I'll tell you one quick story. As a state representative, I was asked to run a bill for the majority office. I took the bill home, read the bill, put it on their desk the next morning, said, I want to kill this bill. You don't do that if you want to succeed there. But it was to expand into the residential historic neighborhoods in St. Augustine, to have eminent domain to allow the Florida School for the Deaf and Blind to expand into those residential neighborhoods. Now, of course, I want the Florida School for the Deaf and Blind to expand the other way into the commercial areas that would be more expensive. So I said, I'm going to try and kill this bill. the fun part about that was a couple days later, the speaker designate, not the current speaker, the one that was going to be speaker next, saw me in the hallway, and he looked around to make sure there was nobody there. He said, "Fred, that was a righteous thing you did. I agree with you, but I cannot support you because in the leadership team, we have to demand that all of our team follow the leader because they're going to need to follow me when I'm the leader. But I agree with what you did." That meant a lot to me, even though I knew that meant, okay, I'm not going to get a speaker chair right away or this or that, which is fine with me. It was more important to me to do what I thought was the right thing.
Right. Is that part of when that time came for you to not be participating in that arena? Was it a relief?
No, I can't say that. And you know, you asked for the story, so I guess so. I supported a former mayor of Ormond Beach to take my place in the House when I ran for Congress. And he is now deceased, a brain tumor, one of the smartest guys I've ever known, David Hood, fabulous guy. And so he told me at the end of his 2 years, he says, "Fred, I can't run again. My health, I can't. So we want you to go back to Tallahassee." So I went back to Tallahassee again. And then Ron DeSantis tells me that he's going to run for, if you remember when Marco Rubio ran, well, that was the year, and DeSantis was going to run for Senate. And Marco told Ron that he wouldn't get back in the race if he wasn't successful in the presidential race. Ron told me he wouldn't get back in the race if Marco got back in the Senate race, that Ron said I would not get back in the congressional race. So I told Tom Leake, who replaced me in the Florida House, that I would not get back in the race if Ron got back in the congressional race. Well, Ron got back in the congressional race, but I did not get back in the House race, as I kept my word. And it's frustrating, but yet I understand how those things happen. So I loved making a difference. I did not like the 250-mile drive to Tallahassee back and forth every week because I'm still working. I'm still a full-time dentist. I mean, I have to have a practice to survive.
How does that work? How does that work? Because you have to go to the Capitol. You've got to take care of customers.
I would leave at about 7 o'clock most Thursdays, drive till close to midnight, see patients Friday and Monday, and then Monday night drive back because the session was Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Okay. And so you just do what you have to do.
Right. So we don't miss that, and I understand. So your week, say you've got 5 days to work, Monday through Friday, as a dentist, normally, but you couldn't do that. You could do a couple of days, and then the rest you would be in service.
And the session is only 60 days a year, and then committee weeks are about 60 days. So they're about 4 months that you're going back and forth to Tallahassee. But anyway, it was a wonderful experience. It helped me understand how government works. It helps me realize that we all have, my wife put it this way, if I happen to like the color of your tie, but if I didn't like the color of your tie, instead of saying I don't like the color of your tie, oh, you have a tie like that. And there's the perspective of we're all different and we need to be different and we need to celebrate our differences if they don't divide us. We need to celebrate our differences that can bring us together and make the whole picture better.
So understanding the pieces are really important. If we look at where we are now in society, based upon your background and your experience, how do we share the idea without the political side of how important it is just to have the fundamentals down for everyone to understand? During the election cycle, well, with our shows we don't get into politics, but we do get into education, we do get into history, and just having that fundamental knowledge of how things actually work. Yeah. And I've seen people run for office and they say, well, I'm going to go to Raleigh and do this. And I'm thinking, well, you won't do that because that's not in the job description.
Yeah. Something that I think is imperative that our future generations and our current ones, as far as that go, understand the difference between a democracy and a constitutional republic. A democracy, I call it mob rule. Now, most people don't like it when I say that, but what I mean by that is if it was a democracy, we might still have slavery in some states. But when you elect leaders that you trust, that you believe are going to represent the people who then go and do all the research and vote whatever they choose to vote for the betterment of the group, you usually get better government than you do with the democracy. The democracy would be if you have a community that is primarily retired folks, and I'm retired so I can pick on myself,
right.
Primarily retired folks that want low taxes. Okay, your ball fields for the kids are falling apart because they vote for low taxes and not to fix the ball fields for the kids. Whereas if you have a republic, meaning that you elect people to represent what's best for the community, they look at it and they say, oh my gosh, we are not taking care of our future generations. We've got to do something about that. So I think it's imperative that people understand the difference of why our founders formed the type of government that we have with the checks and balances. And for instance, the Senate, I think one of the worst decisions ever made was when they changed the senators from being elected by the state legislatures or appointed by the state legislatures, basically selected by the states, to being elected by the people, because the Congress was, the House of Representatives was supposed to be the people's house. The Senate was supposed to be the states' representatives, because we're a nation of states. So you had the people represented in the Congress and the states represented in the Senate. That no longer happens. And that's why I think that the federal government has grown so much and taken over many of the states' activities that are, if they're not enumerated in the Constitution, they belong to the states.
So your thoughts are that the power of each side doing what they're supposed to do from original design, and when that balance became unbalanced, and that's where the problem came in.
That's one of them, for sure.
Right.
And that's one of the things that got me interested in running for Congress was because just like there were issues that could not be resolved locally, and I worked on tax reform, and that's a whole other story, things that you couldn't do locally.
Right.
And we got some of that done. One of the highlights, I guess you'd say, of my time in the Florida House was Matt Gaetz, a name that you may recognize, was the chairman of Finance and Tax. And when he's presenting the budget for the year, he said, and we have cut $459 million, almost $500 million, $459 million out of this section, and we can thank Representative Costello for that. And he turned around and pointed to me because the state was doing something that they told the locals they couldn't do. So I said, you either stop doing it or tell the locals they can do it, because you can't have it both ways.
Right.
And so fortunately, I was able to get that done. And my point is that's part of the tax reform that I want. I just wanted the state to own what they were doing. If they wanted to charge that money, fine, charge it, but say you're doing it. Don't say that's the locals.
Right.
And so the same thing going to Congress. I chose to run for Congress because there's some things that I wanted to. The debt was one. I already talked about how $16 trillion in debt, and I had some departments, including education and energy, and some of the ones that I said, we can't do this anymore.
Right.
It's optimal that we can do everything federally, but we can't afford it. We won't have a country if we keep doing that.
Are you glad you're retired?
I am glad I don't work 8 to 5 anymore. I loved my practice. My office manager was with me 35 years, my financial secretary 35 years, a couple of hygienists 20, 25 years. I had a team where I could just work on patients and I didn't have to worry about the office part.
Right.
It was wonderful.
Like family, right?
Very much like family. We took them on cruises every 2 years, team building. They'd bring significant others. We had a team that was wonderful. They knew that there were going to be times where I was going to have to leave the office and go do something in the community, and they would support that. So I miss the patients, I miss the practice, but I don't miss the 8 to 5. And of course, as you know, when I came here, it was during COVID, and my wife said, well, honey, they shut down practices in Florida. They shut down the schools in Florida. We're here with a couple of grandkids. They don't have school. You don't have a job. Let's stay. So we stayed, and that gets into the story that how we chose here. And I don't know if you're ready for that or not.
Wow. Well, I think we're Well, this is a conversation, so I think it's important as we reflect, on past endeavors and things that have formed our life. I think it's important to let those words come out, and because they lead to better words or other words. I don't always know what's better, but at least other words. So it is an exciting time now to where we begin to look at that transition. So you've stepped out of the limelight as far as public representation. You had a wonderful time as mayor in Florida, and you had a wonderful practice. And now we're looking at, okay, it's time to retire. Sounds like it kind of snuck up on you, right?
Yeah.
It really, as COVID changed so many people's lives. I mean, it was a great disruptor of many things. And I think some things were changed for the better. Some of those things that were changed that were good, people have kind of gone back the other way. Maybe it's not as good, but whatever that is. But let's talk about that transition to North Carolina, because it does seem to me like you didn't just, okay, we're moving. It does sound like a transition in your life.
In about 2002, might have been 3 or 4, but I think it was about 2002. My wife invited me to go with her to a Morning Star Ministries conference in Charlotte. Okay. And Rick Joyner is the guy who founded Morning Star Ministries, and they didn't have a church in Ormond Beach. We didn't know much about them, but I liked what I had read about him because he talked about how the church needs to be involved in the community, in all aspects of the community, including the politics, the public service arena. The church should not say we're to stay out, because our government was founded with Judeo-Christian values that so many people seem to want to eliminate and separate. There is no separation of church and state in the Constitution. There is talk about separation of church and state in some of the writings of some of the founders, not all the founders. So the point is, when she said, why don't you come with me to this New Year's conference? I said, okay, I'd kind of like to hear what he has to say. So while we're in Charlotte, they mentioned that they had purchased some land in a developer that they work with had purchased some land in Moravian Falls. Where's that? And if anybody's interested in having a mountain home, why don't you go take a look at Moravian Falls? So my wife says, why don't we drive up there? So in about 2002, we drive to Moravian Falls from Charlotte, and she says, oh, I like that lot. I said, okay. And she says, no, I like that lot. And I said, what does that mean? She says, I want to buy that lot. So we buy that lot and build a vacation home. So
wait. Okay, so you drive up, you see the land, right? There's more to that, right? I mean, do you visit the town? Do you visit people in the community, or was it really just the land?
It was the land. She felt that God had led us to the land.
Okay.
And I can't remember the exact words, but we were at a faith-based conference who had encouraged people to that if you actually, I think the way it was said was, if you have the gift of hospitality and would like to be involved in equipping people to go out to the nations, that we're going to have a conference center where we equip ministers and equip people who want to go and disciple other people. And we need people who want to build a home and build an area where they can house temporary people that want to come and as their guests to be a part of this ministry. So
that was the lead in. That was the messaging. It's not just land, but land with a purpose, right?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, that's what they were inviting people to look at.
Right. Okay.
And thank you for bringing that out of me. And so we drove there, and she saw it, and she liked it. So we had not looked at the community, didn't know anything about Wilkesboro or anything. I had never thought about having a mountain home. She had. We hadn't really talked about that. I was, in 2002, I was 52. So, active in all kinds of things. So we built the vacation home, which she'd get to 3 or 4 times a year, and I'd get to maybe once a year. And then in 2020, in that home here in Moravian Falls, that's when COVID happened. I'm 70 years old then, working 2 days a week, enjoying it, having fun, going back and forth when we feel like it. And COVID, like I said, shut things down. So the vacation home became the retirement home. We sold the Florida home. The kids all know our address. They can come see us anytime they want.
Right. Do they?
Yeah. We're blessed with a great family, and thank you, Lord.
So, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, I think it was, Thomas Sally, who's the tourism director, we were talking one day, and he said, you really should look for Life in the Carolinas of maybe doing a show about the attraction for people moving to this area for faith-based purposes. And I says, what are you talking about? And then he tells me. And then we looked around a little. And I said, well, maybe it's a little too early. But other people have said that as well. So this idea that affected your family and now has brought you here as your permanent home now, right? It was because of that very reason. So if we can talk about that experience for you, but once you're here, talk about the people you begin to get to know and other people who have maybe come to Wilkes under a similar idea,
sure,
whether it was that particular ministry or others. How large, from your perspective, actually is that draw and that community that's made up of people who did not live here, but this now is their permanent home?
I think it's far greater than most people realize. I met Thomas in Leadership Wilkes. I called up Linda Cheek and asked her if you let old people come into Leadership Wilkes, and she said yes. So I went through Leadership Wilkes. And
wait Thomas, just a minute. So you've retired here, and within a short time of being here, you're looking at ways to actually be involved in kind of the community and from a leadership standpoint.
Well, I hadn't thought about leadership at all. That was not any intention. Right. But yes, being involved. Okay. And so what I'm saying is I met Thomas in that leadership. Right. And in the leadership group, they asked, how did you get here? What brought you here? And so I told them, well, it was the faith-based community is what brought us here. And so I knew Thomas was the tourism director, and I made a comment to him that you'd be surprised. And to answer your question more directly now, our next-door neighbors, Sean and Gina, moved here from California because of Charlie Champ and Destiny Encounters, the ministry that they have here. They are a part of the leadership team, I guess we'll call that.
Which is separate from...
Totally separate from Morning Star. Just coincidental as far as living in West Meadow. They found a home they liked, and people on the other side of us, they also moved here from California, and he's retired. Sean is still working. They moved here because of Morning Star. So we have some that are in West Meadow because of Morning Star and some that aren't. The guy that does a lot of work on my home, Harv, he is here because of Destiny Encounters also. Todd, a friend who I sold his home to him, they're here because Moravian Falls has great meaning. The Moravians that prayed for 24/7, they feel that there is a, whether you want to call it an outpouring of the Spirit or whatever, they're not sure. Bobby Connor, I think it's Eagle View Ministries, something with Eagle, I can't remember his ministry. He lives here, even though part of his ministry is in Texas, but he chooses to live here. And it goes back to a fellow named Bob Jones that I did not know, who is evidently quite a prophet and has written a number of things. And if you look back at some of the things that he's written, it's pretty uncanny, some of those things. But so the Father's House is a church that I believe is in process of being combined with the gathering, which I think is a wonderful thing when the saints get together and come home. But Chris and his wife, Jenny, they were in business. They had a business, and they were drawn here because they felt like the Lord told them to go to Moravian. This is 20 years ago.
Where did they come from?
think it was Indiana or
Okay.
Ohio, somewhere. I don't remember.
So it truly is the picture you're painting now, and you haven't gotten to that whole list, but the one you sent me, I've said, well, that's a lot of people, but they're not like they're from Elkin.
Right. No.
It's not like a 25, 30-mile move. These are people who are basically pulling up stakes across the country, wherever they may be, and making their way to Wilkes County.
Right. And I think people outside of Wilkes County don't realize that the amount of people that are aware of the Moravians. I mean, Old Salem, all the way from over there. A Rotarian that's in the Winston-Salem Club came over and talked to our North Wilkesboro Rotary Club about some of the history of our area that many of our own people here did not know, and about how Zinzendorf, who was in Germany, I believe it was, one of the people look at him as directing modern education. In other words, he's had an influence even to this day on how we educate people. But he had worked on sending missionaries out through the Moravians. I think it was Rick Joyner who calls Zinzendorf the young ruler who said yes, the biblical young ruler who said, what do I need to do? He said, and Jesus said, sell all you have and follow me. And he couldn't do it. He said no. Well, Zinzendorf sold all that he had and did that. And for instance, there's Zinzendorf Lane in West Meadow. So there are a lot of connections to the faith community. Prayer Mountain, I don't know if you've ever heard or been to Prayer Mountain. There are a number of people that come from many different areas to just sit and pray and contemplate at Prayer Mountain to get re-energized and go out.
You and your wife were having breakfast one morning at home. This is your quiet time, your safe space. And are there moments when you look at each other and you just think about what life has evolved to and this experience that you're having now? Is that something that makes life special in a different way than it was special before?
I don't know that I can say that. What I can say is that we both realize that we're on a journey, and we feel like we're not there yet. God's not done with us yet. We don't know what we're going to end up doing. You actually asked me a question that I thought was an extremely insightful question. I don't know if you remember what I'm going to say. The question you asked me was, so Fred, what would you like to come out of this?
Yeah, I remember that.
And I thought about that, and I think the best way I can answer that is each of us have a calling, and we don't know what that is. And one of my prayers is that, Lord, whatever is my calling, please make sure that I get it, that I know that that's something. In other words, I say, knock me off my horse, like you knocked Paul off his horse. I don't want anything subtle. I don't want to miss it. If there's something I'm supposed to be doing, I want to know that I'm supposed to be doing, because if I know I'm supposed to do it, I'll do my best to do it. But I don't want to miss it. And so I think that's where we are in life, that we've had a good run, as they say. We've been married 52 years. We're both healthy, thank you, Lord. And we don't want to just sit and twiddle our thumbs. My wife is a quilter, and if you know anything about quilters, they can't get out of the quilt room. They just want to be there all day long. Right. And she loves giving away quilts, and our granddaughter has now learned how to do it and gave her teacher a quilt this year. That was her gift to her teacher. The teacher cried, of course. It was beautiful. It was an amazing quilt that a little fifth grader made. Wow. So my point of that is that we feel like that we don't know where we're supposed to be serving or what we're supposed to be doing, so we just keep being involved and trying to help other people along the way. Can't do it financially like we used to, because I'm not working anymore, but we can still give our time. Speedway Children's Charities, I'm excited about what the North Wilkesboro Speedway is doing. Sure. So we formed a group and got people to volunteer and go out and just drive the shuttle carts and carry the disabled from their cars to the track and things like that. Most of the workers out there are paid to do the things, but our group's all volunteers. And we're just trying to find community people that care enough to be involved.
So at this moment, based upon that part of your sharing, do you feel like you're at least for the moment, on the right horse, going in the right direction?
I hope so. You mentioned leadership earlier. I did not expect to get involved in leadership. I expected to get involved in the community. I mean, I joined the chamber, didn't expect to end up being chairman of the board. I joined Rotary, didn't expect to end up being president. You just get involved in a group you think's doing good things. You want to help them because you want to help the community.
Has that happened to you all throughout your life?
Yes, and again, I want to make it clear that not because I'm I'm not smarter, I'm not more special,
Sure.
I'm just willing. In other words, it's the coalition of the willing. It's not the coalition of the intelligent or the coalition of the gifted, it's the coalition of the willing.
Well, the idea of being a leader of civic groups and organizations that have a mission of serving others, that's not an easy seat to sit in if you expect to do nothing, right? I mean, it truly is for those who are exercising a great amount of discipline in their life so they can manage their time to serve. And that's a big deal.
It's
right?
a lot of time.
So it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, but it seems like it served you well.
Well, it energizes you if you have vision is my favorite word, and I'm not saying I have great vision and I don't have visions, but I have vision as far as if I want to see something happen, I can see the result, and then I'll do whatever I can to get there. Mm-hmm. And I love it when people have a vision and share a vision, because that's what we need our leaders to do. I would rather have 4 people say they want to run for mayor, and I don't care what job you have now, I don't care what you've done before, I want to know what your vision for the community is, and do you have a history of whatever vision for your neighborhood or for your family? In other words, how hard do you work to accomplish your vision? So I want to pick somebody with a vision that I can get behind and want to support, that has a history of working hard on their vision, not just throwing it out there and seeing what happens. That's what I think we need more of, is choosing what vision, what direction we want to go. And so when I think of Wilkes County, back to trying to answer your question, what do I want to see come out of this? Who knows whether Wilkes County could be the genesis, the instigation of a period of revival. Who knows if Wilkes County could have some students that come out of our communities because they went to the tent revival that they had here a couple weeks ago, or they went to some other crusade type event, or they went to Faith Fest, I don't want to call it concert, but the group that Faith Fest, which we've been every year and been a partner, I mean, we love it. But my point is, we don't know who is going to come out of these events and what their impact could be worldwide. I mean, think of Billy Graham, one guy that the millions that he impacted. Who knows? We might be preparing for the next Billy Graham to come out of here. And I'm not predicting that or prophesying that. I'm just saying that we don't know what it is we're preparing for. But if the Lord is trying to prepare the faith community to work together for something, I don't know what it is, but if my part is simply connecting some of the dots that I've had an opportunity to meet, I'm not real shy. So right. I meet people well. I have always teased that my wife and I have 2 advantages. When a pretty girl walks in the room, people see her. When a tall guy walks in the room, people see him. I'm tall and she's pretty. And so when I go in a room, I end up seeing most of the people. They see me not because I'm good looking, not anything other than just physical presence. Right. So I meet people.
So you're physically present, both you and your wife, in Wilkes County now. You know something's going on. You can feel it. Is it fair to say that the journey of whatever it may be, whenever it may be, with a gathering of people for different reasons, if those people are people who care about mankind, if they're people who have love and compassion in their heart, the whatever and whenever it comes, the community is better because there are people who care and have compassion for not only Wilkes, but for people around the world.
Absolutely. And we're in the Bible Belt. I mean, let's face it, you know.
Sure.
And I smile when I see some of the names of the roads that, you know what I'm talking about, where it's 3 or 4 names, Church Road.
Right.
And I think it's awesome. But I'd also like to see all of the various churches get together and do what we can. I would like to see no homeless in Wilkes. I'd like to see no children that have issues with, you know, food concerns and things. And if all the churches, if all the faith community, if all of us could get together, we ought to be able to do that. And I'm not the guy that can lead that. I don't even know that many people here yet. But if we can connect some of the faith communities together to work with the Anchor Ridge, who, by the way, Anchor Ridge right here out of North Wilkesboro, our church in Ormond Beach was a supporter of Anchor Ridge and has sent people up here, totally unrelated to us. We didn't even know Anchor Ridge was here. Right. But our church at home support. I'm just saying they're an amazing group. And of course, Samaritan's Purse, that, you know, worldwide they know. So we've got groups here that could put all this stuff together and make it really, some of the leaders already made it so our high school graduates can go to Wilkes Community College 2 years for free. I mean, we have the ability and the community that could put something together to make sure that there's no food insecurity, there's no homelessness. Let's find a place and let's build some tiny houses or whatever, you know, for the people that, and give them X years. You know, you can stay here 3 years and then you're going to have to move on. So you start saving some money so you get something else because the next group's going to have to come in. I don't know. I'm just brainstorming. But I think that the faith community should get together and start doing some of that.
Doing those things. Fred Costello, clearly your life's journey is not over.
Thank you.
There are many ideas in your head. It seems like, and maybe it has been your entire life, that many of those thoughts and concerns are led by compassion and caring for community and other people and hoping for the best. But now it seems like it's an extra sweet time of your life. And by sweet, I mean they're just the types of thoughts are those that are of helping. Maybe they've always been there. I would imagine seeds of those are there. But when you're retired, you're not a retired person that does nothing. Clearly, you're very much involved. You just aren't taking care of teeth locally.
Yeah.
You're retired here, but you're not quitting. So I think that's great.
What did Winston Churchill say? And it's a paraphrase. I can't remember it exactly, but you make a living by what you get. You make a life by what you give.
Yeah.
And I think there are a lot of people in Wilkes that are trying to make a life by giving.
That's special. Thank you, Fred Costello.
My honor.
Thank you for spending time with us on Life in Wilkes. We value you as a viewer and appreciate when you share the show with your friends and family. Be sure to bookmark our channel and join us again on the next episode of Life in Wilkes.